everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the podcast where we unpack the big ideas and bring them down to earth so you can live, lead, and grow with clarity. I'm your host, Avik, and today we are talking about something that's so needed right now, especially if you have ever looked around and thought, wait, is this what being an adult is supposed to feel like? So, our guest today is someone who has been in the boardroom, in the field, and perhaps most importantly, on the other end of 1,000 hey dad calls from his four kids. Rob Finlay. So, welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely, lovely. So, Rob, before we start, I'd quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Rob is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, a seasoned entrepreneur, and a strategic powerhouse who has built and sold four companies. But what really stand out is his passion for mentorship, personal growth, and empowering the next generation to navigate the adulthood, not just with success, but with self-awareness. So his new book, Hey Dad, dropping on April this month, 29th of April, is a part survival guide, part hilarious memoir, and 100% real talk for young adults who are trying to make sense of bills, bosses, burnout, and yep, big life questions. So, buckle up because today we are diving into entrepreneurship, mindfulness, and the personal development and all the lessons that don't show up in your college syllabus. So, let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. So, Rob, I mean, you have got this unique blend of boardroom wisdom and backyard dad energy, and I think we need all of it today. So let's start with a book like Hey Dad. It feels like a conversation that needed to happen years ago. So what made you finally sit down and turn those late night life questions into a guide for young adults?
I think the actual defining moment was a middle of the night phone call from one of my daughters. She was traveling,
Okay.
and anytime one of your kids calls in the middle of the night, it's always a thing of scare.
Hmm.
So I jump, get the phone, and what's wrong? First thing
Mm.
she's like, "Hey, Dad, can I put the green gas in my Jeep?" And for her, the green gas, I finally realized, meant diesel. And it was at that moment I thought, "Geez, clearly, no, you cannot put diesel
Mm.
fuel in your gas can." Um,
Mhm.
but I realized at that moment I probably didn't teach her everything I should have.
Mhm.
And as I started to think more about it and talk to other adults who,
Yeah.
other parents who had young adults
Right.
going through this transition time from basically being dependent to independent, I
Mhm.
I said, "You know what? Maybe it would be fun to write a book." And
Yeah.
as I started doing that, I started looking back at a lot of the questions that I received from my kids, but also seeing the change in young adults, in my 25 years of hiring kids right out of college or young adults right out of college. And so I wrote this book to really be a framework. It's not a everything, but a framework that's generally going to help young
Mhm.
adults go through this incredibly stressful transition from
Great.
being sort of, I'm dependent on everything mom and dad in my life and to being independent.
Mm, understood. So, what surprised you the most about what this generation is really struggling with?
I think what really
Mm.
was the key is I put this I use this analogy.
Okay.
You've been on the if you go to the airport and they have these motorized walkways, right? They just
Okay.
and my kids, we always used to call them the magic carpet ride, where you get on and you go down the terminal, and when you get to your gate, you hop off. And I really believe that our kids, our young
Mm.
adults are in that stage where they jump on when they're young, and every year they're sort of
Yeah.
programmed, and all of a sudden that stops. And I think the thing that surprised me the most, and it was wonderful writing this book. At the same time, some of my kids were going through this, but that transition of finding themselves and trying to figure out what they wanna be and who they wanna be
Mm.
was an incredibly important moment for them. I don't remember when I was, back at that age, 25 years ago or 30 years ago,
Yeah.
I think I just sort of got up and I said, "Okay, I gotta go get a job and I'm gonna go do that." Now, it seems like this is a very defining moment where they have been so pre-programmed to do something that having to pivot or having to fail because they don't have that job is incredibly, um, concerning and very almost debilitating for many young adults.
Mm. I agree. I agree on this. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear this kind of practical, heartfelt guidance, like because it's, let's be honest. I mean, we have all Googled how to adult at least once,
Right?
definitely, and the answers are not always helpful. So, yeah, and so from this, like you have built and sold 4 companies, which is definitely incredible. And but success like that doesn't come without its own set of lessons. So, what have entrepreneurship and building businesses taught you about resilience, and how does the mindfulness fit into that journey?
Yeah, so resilience, you have to have resilience, but I think it's
Mm.
not just about it being an entrepreneur, it's about life.
Okay, yeah.
In order to be successful in life, you must have resilience and you must embrace it. You have to realize that every day is what you make out of it and what you're going to create. And and I think and at least for me personally as a business person, you have to find the wins every day because you can go through a day where you're just beaten down every day. A key customer calls and cancels an order. The product isn't working. Key people quit. You can't hire people. Finances are tough. Whatever it is, but you always have to walk away with a little win, something that you have to find positive. And I think if you can transcend that into your daily life, you start to
Mm.
you start to win, and those little things one of the sections in the book, I mention is a thing called compounding and the importance of compounding, and most people assume that compounding is just about financial terms, and yes,
Mm.
compounding is about investing a little bit, and it grows over time, and it compounds and becomes bigger and bigger, but
Yeah.
compounding also has to do with habits. Doing something every day, just a little bit, will compound into something great. Healthy mind, mindfulness, taking a few minutes to meditate, taking some time to exercise every
Mm.
day will compound into great results. And the same thing with
Exactly.
friendships and social. Doing something to help somebody else every day or as
Mm.
much as you can will compound into great relationships and great connections with people and society.
Exactly. So, do you think that today's young entrepreneurs are facing a different kind of pressure as compared to when you started out?
Oh, yes, because when I started out, I didn't have this
Yeah.
thing called social media.
Yeah.
And I think as our young adults, if you look at what is presented in social media, just the use of
Mm.
technology, it really is almost a false sense of accomplishment, and I think it's very detrimental to young adults. If I look at, I go on Instagram or TikTok or any of the
Mm.
social medias, and everybody out there, if it's anything with business, they're incredibly successful. They fly jets and they have, big
Mm.
boats and big houses and all these trappings of what is believed to be success, but
Mm.
you have no idea what's real and what's fake. And when I was growing up and I started my first business, I didn't have that. I either knew I had to make it or I didn't have to make it. I wasn't reminded every second of every day looking at some type of social media
Mm.
of somebody perceived to be very successful. And I think that's generally is going to be the difference. And
Mm,
so I advise young adults, especially young entrepreneurs,
mm,
to not pay attention to thine own self be true. It's a great
mm,
Shakespeare quote. It's my grandfather used to tell me that to thine own self be true. Just worry about yourself. Don't worry about everybody else because you don't know. You don't know what's
exactly.
behind those doors. You don't know what's behind that picture. You don't know if that person is, you know, born
Mm,
independently wealthy. Their parents provide everything for them, or maybe it's just
yeah.
all fake and they borrowed everything.
Mm, true. Yeah. This happens. And I love that because hustle culture can make people forget that how you build matters just as much as what you build. And success without inner alignment. So it's just another stressor with a kind of better title. So
Mm.
yeah.
I think though, it's
Hmm.
and your podcast is fantastic because
Mhm.
it's such an important topic, and I think in fairness, um, not everybody gets it, and sometimes it takes a while, and I try to stress the importance, and I was so unbalanced early on in my
Mm,
career when I started my business, it consumed me 100%, and I think a lot of this book, people say, "Well, geez, Rob, is this just you feeling guilty that you weren't present in your own kids growing up because you were constantly working, you were constantly building businesses?" And perhaps, yes, perhaps I was because I
mm,
wasn't centered. I focused on what I thought was important. As I've gotten older, I've realized that the importance is actually just more of a balanced life and finding inner peace and finding the enjoyment in life and the purpose in life, and it changes. Uh, Sell your first business if you talk to people who have gone through this, where they've had these massively or a successful exit on their business, and the next day they don't have that business anymore. It's what defined them. And so they have to go through this reflection period themselves. That's when I actually found Ikigai, which was after I sold my first business, it defined me. Everything I had, it was that business. And I sold it. And the next day, people would ask me, "Well, what do you do?" I'd be at a dinner party or something. And somebody say, "Well, what do you do?"
yeah.
And I couldn't answer because I it was the thing that defined me the most. And so I had to go and find my own purpose again and again and again.
Exactly. Wow. So I mean, it is really lovely. I mean, also, if we talk about one thing that stands out in your work is your ability to integrate the personal development into real world advice. So without it feeling preachy. So how can the young adults start to build a foundation of self awareness while still handling all the chaos of early adulthood, jobs, rent, relationships, blah blah blah, all this.
And that's a great question. I think that's
Mhm,
probably one of the most challenging things for a young adult, right? Is
mhm,
as I said, you're coming to this situation where you have been pre-programmed every year. You go from first
mhm,
grade to second grade to third grade, so on and so forth. You get a major that you think you work really hard to get to a college or
mhm,
university. You get the major that you think is going to be great, and then all of a sudden, it comes the
right.
reality. And I think it's important for people, young adults. The first and
Mm,
foremost, the thing that I tell everybody is
okay.
relax. Take a deep breath in. Relax. It's the decisions that you make today
Mm,
are not gonna be cast in stone forever.
yep.
You have your life is a journey, and
Mhm,
the journey is that's the excitement. It's the journey. It's, my youngest daughter is a hiker. She loves hiking,
mm,
and she equates it to when she goes out on a hike, it's more about she just wants to go see something. She doesn't know the hike. She just knows generally, do I want to go in the mountains? Do I want to go in the fields? Do I want to go by the water? And she can pick her hike based upon that.
Mm,
What she sees along that hike and where she goes and the path that she takes is truly up to her. And I think I try to use that analogy back to young adults.
yeah.
You've been given base skills. You're gonna
Mm,
and adulting is something that you're gonna have to do for the rest of your life, and you learn, continually to learn. But think of this part of your life right now as truly just a way for you to go on a hike, find the things that you enjoy, and if you don't like it, turn around, go to a different side, take a different path. But most important is that you actually have to start. I think this failure to launch, the failure, this consuming, all consuming stress that prevents people from doing action is what is most damaging. So I tell my kids and other young adults, enjoy the journey. Just take the first step, one step in front of the other.
mm-hmm. Very good. That's a very good way. Yeah, definitely. And I'd say that that's really a goal because we often treat personal growth like it's something we'll get to later. I mean, that kind of behavior. So, but you are showing us that it can be woven right into our daily lives. So, no mountaintop retreat required. So,
Nice,
definitely,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's look, you're going to, you know, personal development happens
mm,
for your entire life,
yeah,
right? And that's what makes that, that's a good sign of
mm,
of an adult is knowing that you get to improve every day and try to
mm,
improve, right? And that's part of the goal. But it
mm,
does make sense to start today. Improve yourself
mm,
by getting up and networking, getting up, doing something for your brain, getting up, doing something for your body.
yeah, exactly, agree. And finally, like you are not just a business mind, you are a dad, a farmer, and someone who cares deeply about stewardship and uh, sustainability. So how has your life outside of the entrepreneurship, especially in the agriculture and parenting, influenced your philosophy on the leadership and the purpose?
I think the stewardship and the enjoyment of nature comes from a more well balanced life, and I think that's when you start to when you have the benefit of slowing your mind and seeing more. It gives you a unique perspective to look around and actually manage and operate businesses through that lens of having clarity and enjoyment in the things that are around you. And that was something that's taken years to develop and years to evolve. Um, I wasn't always I was very much go, go, go. I was very much get to work, do, dinners and all this other stuff. But as I've become older and have learned these other ways of mindfulness and more balance in my life, it's allowed me to actually find other interests and other passions, such as sustainability, regenerative farming,
Yeah.
and things that matter to me. And those are the things that really make me who I am. And I try to encourage people to open and expand yourself into
Mm,
different horizons, especially young people. Young people should be experiencing as much as they possibly can. I know there's a habit with young adults who will go out there and maybe because of work from home or because of remote work or other things, or just because they move to a different area,
mm,
that they become socially isolated. And I think it's a scary thing in our society where
mm,
these young adults are not they are not exposed outside of their own little shell, and I think it's important for young adults to go out there and to go and try new things. Go to these groups, go to these meetup groups and try different things to
mm.
expand not only your personal intellect, but also your social intellect.
Exactly. So, I mean, uh, do you think that we are starting to see a cultural shift where people want success and meaning, not just one or the other?
I do, and I hope so. I hope so because I think that's when you can find that purpose as opposed to just success,
Mhm.
it is incredible. Success as an entrepreneur is I think it can become overwhelming and over is sort of consuming, all consuming. You're so desperate, and unfortunately for many entrepreneurs, it doesn't happen, right?
Mhm.
It's, the majority of startup businesses fail and it because it is hard. That comes back to that resilience, being able to embrace the failure, taking that failure and stepping up and continuing. But once you find the purpose and your own purpose, and realize that that's not what defines you, it's who you are as a human, as a person, that's when you start to have great success.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome, lovely, and that's so powerful reminder. And Rob, thank you so much for showing us today with such heart and clarity. And your book, your journey, and your mindset are a gift to the young adults. And the honesty, honestly saying, to all of us still figuring things out. Yeah, and so for all the listeners, whether you are 18 or 48, whether you have just started your career or uh, you are maybe rethinking your path. So remember that personal development isn't a kind of luxury; it's a necessity. Mindfulness isn't soft; it's strategic, and entrepreneurship. That's just another word for creating the life that you want on your terms. So, if you're ready to laugh, learn, and launch yourself at the next chapter with a little more wisdom, so grab Hey Dad on 29th April and share this episode with someone who needs a little direction, a little reassurance, or a little dad wisdom served with a wink. So, uh, I'll share all the links into the show notes for your easy reference, dear listeners. And with this hope, until next time, keep your mind sharp, your heart open, and your life aligned. So this is your host Avik signing off from Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Till then, be happy. Thank you so much.